Us Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. Glad to have back, tried the other day, but we had some technical problems, but honored to have back with us today John Gordon. He's the host of the syndicated radio show, The Truth with John Gordon. He's a graduate from Mercer University Law School in Georgia, business owner, entrepreneur, also worked as a journalist there, as a reporter there in Atlanta. And he also ran for the Republican candidate, as a Republican candidate for Georgia's Attorney General in 2022 and was endorsed by President Donald Trump. He does have a couple of places, youtube.com/@JohnGordonTruth. And that would be a place to connect with him. And there's a picture of that landing page. John, good to see you. How are you, friend?
Great, Perry. Thank you. Nice to be back with you.
Yeah, sorry about the go-around last time, but we got you back.
I think it was probably on our end. My apologies.
No,
we're here now.
No worries. You know, computers are great when they work and they're horrible when they don't.
Absolutely.
Well, a lot to talk to you about. In the last couple of hours, or 24 hours, the president said, last warning to Hamas. What do you think is going on?
I think it's showtime. I think it's time to put up or shut up. And I think the president's serious, and I don't know what the consequence is going to be, but I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end.
All right, so he's primarily directing this to Hamas for the American hostages. There would have to be some kind of coordination with Israel, don't you think?
I would certainly think so, and I think that Hamas has had plenty of notice. And, you know, really, Hamas is a proxy for Iran. They're the ones who need to get serious. And you know, they have been terrorizing our world now since Jimmy Carter became president. I'm sick of it. I think the American people are sick of it. I think Donald J. Trump is sick of it. And I think it's time for some accountability. I can't wait, personally. I don't want to devolve into a war, but I do want Iran to stop meddling with the world stage.
All right, we'll have to wait and see what this next round is. Now, there's a part of this, John, maybe, I don't know the answer to this, and I was asking it to myself earlier today. Is Gaza real estate owned by Israel?
You know, that question goes back how many years? I mean, 1,000 years? I think that's what people have been fighting for since I can remember, certainly since in the modern day, since the 1940s. And I don't know who Gaza belongs to, and I don't have a strong opinion. I just think that cooler heads are going to have to prevail, and that some sort of an appeasement for all the parties is going to have to be arrived at. But whatever is decided, it needs to be in the name of peace. But there has to be some fairness to all. You know, I'm of the opinion that there's two sides to every story. And I think the people, the Palestinians, have been persecuted. I think that they have been mistreated. But here is the problem. When you chop off the heads of little children and when you kill pregnant women, you lose any opportunity at all to stick up for yourself. And that's what that's the position that Hamas has put the Palestinians in Gaza. And so, you know, I'm sorry, but I think that that whatever goodwill was in the beaker quickly evaporated. And now it's a real problem, because there are truly victims in Gaza that did nothing to lead to this confrontation and the atrocities that occurred. But, you know, citizens pay for the bad deeds of their leaders all the time. This is nothing new.
Okay, I want to switch your attention to a headline that just popped up about 45 minutes ago, and that is that President Trump now does have a Secretary of Education, and moving forward now, ordering that Secretary of Education to shut down the Department of Education. That's kind of like, I'm hiring you to quit.
Pretty much. He said, I'm hiring her to make her job obsolete and to fire herself. Look, you know, the problem is, and it is pervasive in Washington, and it's all about power, money, greed, political power. But the states send money to Washington so bureaucrats can re-divvy it up and send it back to the states with their own requirements for how they think that education should be delivered or whatever the topic of the day is. And it is very inefficient. And the people in Washington don't have the insights that the people on the ground have. So I think that we're reversing the trend here that President Trump wants to say, look, the states know what's best for them. We're not going to have them send the money to Washington so we can send it back. We're just going to get rid of the Department of Education. The states can go it alone. We'll help out where necessary or where we can provide value. But otherwise, let the states govern for themselves and educate their children.
Yeah, that's what will happen. I was surprised to learn that the Department of Education literally is under the executive branch. So the president does have the power to do this.
Well, I think the American people are surprised with the pervasive power of the presidency. Mm-hmm. But every department of government reports up through the executive branch, with the exception of Congress and the Supreme Court. Everything else, he's the commander-in-chief of the military. He's the chief executive officer of the bureaucracy. And the bureaucracy has gotten completely out of control. And don't forget the intelligence agencies as part of that, including the CIA, the NSA, and the FBI. And what happens when you give people unlimited amounts of money and no supervision? You have the perfect storm for devilment. And that's what we've witnessed in this country now for 50 years, and it's time that it be put in check. Dwight Eisenhower, well, Harry Truman created the CIA. Dwight Eisenhower, just 4 years later, said it had gone completely off the rails and it needed to be reined in. John Kennedy said that he was going to bust the CIA into 1,000 pieces and spread its part from the Pacific to the Atlantic. 6 months later, he was dead. And now it's Donald Trump's opportunity to tame this monster that has gotten out of control. And that's not a sweeping indictment of every good man and woman who works for the CIA or our intelligence agencies who truly put their lives on the line to protect our country and our freedoms. But it is an indictment of the people who abuse that trust and that authority. And there is ample blame to go around. It's got to be reined in. I still want to know what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania on July the 13th, 2024. If that was not an inside job, I've never seen one. And heads need to roll. People need to be outed and held accountable.
Do you think the president would be successful in abolishing the CIA?
Well, that's a very reasonable knee-jerk reaction, but that overlooks the important role that the CIA does fulfill. And so I'm not in favor of abolishing the CIA. And as I said a moment ago, I don't want to disrespect the people that are truly patriots and operate within the confines of the law who operate in the CIA. But it is in bad, serious need of reform. And the reforms have to start with shining light on the deeds. I mean, we've been waiting now 5 weeks for the Epstein files. They still haven't been delivered. We were promised, and my memory is not good, but it's not that bad. I can remember 3 weeks ago that Pam Bondi said that the files are on her desk and she's going to release them on Tuesday. Well, that was Tuesday 3 weeks ago, I believe, and we still don't have them. And I wonder what's in those files. It must be really pretty bad. Otherwise, I think they would have been released by now. So all the secrets need to come out. I want to know who killed John Kennedy. I want to know what's in the Epstein files. I want to know where Maxwell Urich is, who disappeared the day after Butler. His parents filed a missing persons report. He was named in the minutes after the attempted assassination as a suspect, and then you've never heard about him since. He is the key to Butler. We need to know.
It's amazing. All right, one other thing before I leave the subject. How do you think, back to the Department of Education real quick, John, if the Department of Education is abolished, how do you think that will impact states? I mean, I realize states can do what they want with education, but that money doesn't circulate back. So what do you think will happen?
Well, there's an awful lot to unpack there, Perry, as you know. Right now, I think that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are doing a high wire act like we've never watched before. And one of the serious considerations is the unintended consequences of their actions. And if you go in and just broad brush start dismantling and abolishing these organizations, there is a financial consideration that has to be part of the equation. It is my belief, and shared by many, that this economy is fragile right now. Mm-hmm. We still have relatively high unemployment. We have high interest rates, particularly in the modern era. Consumer confidence is languishing. And I think that we are holding a Fabergé egg in our hands, and if we're not careful, we'll crumble it. And so while I'm in favor of abolishing the Department of Education, I'm not in favor of doing that on one day. I'm more in line with the notion of dismantling it a piece at a time, methodically and intentionally, so that we don't end up with unintended consequences. We cannot end up with children not being able to learn or teachers not being able to teach. So a knee-jerk shotgun approach, I don't think is going to work. And I would say that for Doge as well. Now, where we've got people that are receiving Social Security checks and they're 350 years old, that's an easy one. And where we've got people that are known to be dead on the Social Security rolls, and evidently this is not a new discovery. We've known it for 10 years. That needs to happen immediately. But then when we get to more serious pieces of the puzzle, it's got to be done with some thought and consideration for what the unintended consequences might be.
No, I don't think anybody's arguing with you on that, John. I realize a lot of things are happening fast, and to your point, and I agree that, hey, wait a minute, let's be careful here. We're on a roll, and it's a good one, but is it a practical one? In other words, the speed of it. Is it practical to go this fast? Can we still accomplish it by being a little bit more methodical? I totally agree with that. I would hope that they would look at that. But when there is basic fraud and waste, all right, you can start right there and do some immediate things and just cut it off. If you just stop paying the Social Security fraud, there's enough there to make Social Security sovereign again, or Solomon again. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it would be, I don't know the numbers, it's a giant step in the right direction, but there are other benefits from doing that. And I've said for really decades that, you know, when you assassinate the President of the United States, and there's no accountability and no consequence, what that then becomes what I call trickle-down values and ethics. What you basically have transmitted to every bureaucrat in America is that you can literally get away with murder, and if you're in a position of power, you can do so with impunity. So the converse operates as well. Once you start routing out fraud and abuse and corruption, it's going to send a signal to people in the government that, whoa, wait a second, you may have been able to get away with this in years past, but there's a new sheriff in town, and if you do it now and you get caught, there's going to be hell to pay. That's what needs to happen, and we'll see a snowball going in the positive direction, I think, in very short order.
One other quick question before I take a break. Is it possible to reevaluate a preemptive immunity?
Well, that is a debate that many legal scholars are engaging in, and at the risk of sounding like a softy, I'm not in favor of deconstructing the power of the president to pardon. But here's what I am in favor of, and I think it is a pragmatic and workable solution. There is nothing that would prevent those people from being investigated, questioned by the FBI, put under oath in a grand jury, and potentially indicted and tried. That's what I favor. Now, the outcome is a big nothing burger. They can't be punished because they have been pardoned. But at least we can get the truth out, and their consequence can be public condemnation for their evilness and their bad deeds. I think that is a middle ground that I could live with, because it would hold the people accountable. The repercussions to them personally would be immense. And I don't think that we have to worry so much about a penal kind of punishment in those cases. But the truth needs to come out. That's what I want. I want the truth.
I think you're spot on with that. I understand. I don't want to weaken the power of the presidency, but at the same time, they have forfeited their Fifth Amendment rights. They can testify. They can be subpoenaed. They need to be looked at. It can go all the way through and yet be pardoned. It may end up in a nothing burger, but it really doesn't end up in a nothing burger if we actually uncover the truth.
Public opinion and condemnation is a very powerful weapon. Everybody wants to be well-liked. Everybody wants to be employable. Everybody wants to have a good life. So if you put them under the microscope, take James Comey, for instance. Here's a guy who intentionally, knowingly bugged a candidate for president of the United States without a existing predicate. Now, I think James Comey should be publicly humiliated beyond what he's experienced so far, if the charges are true, and I happen to believe that they are. What that one man drugged this country through is inexcusable. It led to a fake impeachment of Donald Trump, a $40 million Mueller investigation, and it was all based on a lie, and they knew it was a lie. The Steele dossier was a fabrication bought and paid for by Hillary Clinton, authored by Perkins Coie law firm, and put out in the mainstream media and circulated by James Comey. Damn them. Damn them to put this country through that.
What about Senator Adam Schiff being a part of that?
Oh, gosh. Don't get me started.
Okay, let me take a break. Have a sip of water. I'll be right back. YouTube.com/@JohnGordonTruth. That's the landing page there. You can check out the radio show. We'll be right back. Nice to have back with us John Gordon. He's the host of the syndicated show, The Truth with John Gordon, and he's quite involved. He's an attorney, ran for the Attorney General there in Georgia, and he does have a landing page, youtube.com/@JohnGordonTruth, and there's a picture of that landing page. John, just quickly before I move on to something else, it's a 30,000-foot question. James Comey, Adam Schiff, and Dr. Fauci. Do you ever think the truth will come out with all three of those?
Well, until the delay and whatever is happening with the Epstein files that we're watching, I would have said absolutely. Now I'm beginning, my confidence is being shaken. Washington has a way of protecting its own. And my suspicion is that whatever are in those files are so hard to view or watch or embarrassing to people in very high places. I don't know. I think you can say the same applies to Comey and Schiff and Fauci. Let's don't forget Liz Cheney. I'd like to throw her in that bundle with Benny Thompson and some of the others on the J6 Commission that I think also have led this country through a very bad disservice. I think J6 was an absolute staged act, and they tried to hang it around Donald Trump's head, and the American people didn't buy it. And so we do need the truth. I want it. So, yeah. But I don't know.
I understand what you're saying. I get it. It's a kind of a shaky time. But let's give Attorney General Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel, give them some time to kind of get their feet on the ground and see what happens. So I want to come back.
But I hate to go back and sound like a broken record, but I am watching very intently everything. And what I am noticing is a plethora of YouTube videos coming out all of a sudden about JFK's assassination, We've got doctors who performed the autopsy. We've got the Secret Service agent who hasn't spoken in 60 years suddenly coming forward. And all of this information is starting to ooze out, and I think that's a precursor for what is to come. So maybe we will get sunshine, which is the best disinfectant before it's all said and done.
I want to come to the happening in the Oval Office last Friday with President Zelensky, President Trump, Vice President Vance, and then, of course, you even had Marco Rubio sitting there. It was quite the deal. Since then, Zelensky has reached back and said, let's make a deal. What's your 30,000-foot view of this one?
I think that Zelensky got horrible advice before that meeting. He met with the Dems. They sabotaged it. And I don't know why that's not treasonous behavior, frankly. I mean, what right do legislators have to go meet with the head of state and coach him and counsel him on how he is supposed to interact with the president of the United States, who is constitutionally the commander-in-chief of our country? How dare them? That's my answer. And I think they just absolutely sent him out on the limb, and President Trump sawed it off. Good for him.
You think a deal will be made now?
I do. Zelensky is desperate. He's not dumb. And it is clear that if he wants to maintain his position as president of the Ukraine and maintain Ukraine as a sovereign country, that he has got to come to the peace table. And kudos to President Trump and the vice president for drawing a red line and showing strength. And also kudos to Zelensky for being able to swallow his pride and come back and say, look, I messed up. He didn't say that, but he inferred that strongly, and I'm ready to make peace. I think that is worthy of a pat on the back for him. Now let's see if he is earnest, and I think he will be. It is a pragmatic solution that I don't think he really has a choice in, just like President Trump said. He doesn't have any cards.
Obviously, we're the biggest supplier of money and armament to Ukraine during this horrible time, and Ukraine did not invade itself. And right now, it seems like Russia and Putin are given a pass through all of this messy waters that we're in at the moment. What do you think happens to Putin in the end?
Well, you make a good point, and it looks like right now that Putin is winning to some extent. I'm not willing to concede that by any means. I think there will be there's going to have to be a coming to the middle from everybody. And I don't know what the accommodation for Russia is going to be, but look, you have to go back and rewind the tape to when this war began. And you will recall, I know you know, Perry, that NATO was going to include Ukraine. They were going to make Ukraine a member of NATO, which was code word for we're going to put missiles on the border of Russia. Now, that would be no different than if Trudeau said, hey, y'all come on over to Canada. You can put some missiles on the U.S. northern border. And the president of Mexico says, yeah, we'll put some missiles on the southern border. How long do you think that would last? And, you know, it's been tried before. This little country down here south of where I'm sitting called Cuba, that gave rise to as close as we've come to a nuclear conflict in our lifetimes. And so I think that you've got to be reasonable and understand that missiles on Russia's border is a non-starter for Putin. There is some common ground, I think, that we can come to. We wouldn't allow it. He's not going to allow it. So let's don't fight over something that's impractical.
Two things there before I run out of time. John, one is, do you think real estate is part of the negotiation? In other words, Russia does get some real estate out of it. And number two, could we a little bit be pragmatic here? Russia has really lost. They were going to go in there and do this in 2 weeks, and here we are 3 years later, and they're running out of things, and their tanks are made out of beer cans. It doesn't work.
Perry, everybody is lost. The death toll, the destruction, it's horrific. I hate war. Yeah. And why we were allowed to be sucked into this war is inexcusable to me. I suspect that it's part due to the military-industrial complex and the warmongers, and it gets down to money, which is disgusting. But will Putin end up with territory? I think that's going to be a very difficult one to sell. I hope not, but there might have to be some accommodation there. I just don't know. But Europe, Eastern Europe, doesn't want to go back and be part of a new Soviet Union. They're all terrified of it. Nobody wants it. The only person that wants it is Putin and maybe his cabinet. But territory is going to be a tough obstacle to get around if Putin makes that a condition.
John, good to see you. Thank you for your time. You're a busy guy, so when we call you, let us connect with you. Let me say to our viewers and listeners, youtube.com/@, that's the sign at John Gordon Truth. There's the picture there. Check out his radio show. Good to see you. Let's stay connected, friend.
Thank you, Perry. My pleasure. I have enjoyed it.
Thank you.